Nepotism. You hear that word and you know a debate is coming, right? Especially when we're talking about politics or Bollywood. But here's a thought from the source material we're looking at today. Is our outrage, well, is it selective? Let's get into it.
Okay, so first things first, let's just make sure we're all on the same page here. What is nepotism? Simply put, it's when people with power give jobs or opportunities to their family and friends. You know, giving them a leg up, an inside track, instead of just looking at who's best for the job based on skill alone. The definition itself is pretty simple, but the real juicy part is how and when we decide to call it out.
So think about it. When you hear the words nepotism or dynasty politics thrown around in the news, who's usually on the receiving end? The source material points out a pretty common pattern. The finger often gets pointed at opposition parties, like Congress, or at places like Bollywood. I mean, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's a story we've heard over and over again.
But hold on, because this is where the source material really flips the script. It takes that whole familiar story and asks a really pointed question. If we're genuinely upset about families having too much influence, are we looking everywhere or just in some places? I mean, what about the family connections inside the ruling party itself?
And look, the source doesn't just leave it as a question, it brings receipts. It points to examples like Mahanaram and Scindia, the son of Union Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia, who's now the president of the Madhya Pradesh Cricket Association. Then you've got Piyush Goyal, the commerce minister, whose father was also a minister. And the list goes on. Anurag Thakur, son of a former chief minister, and Jai Shah, son of the home minister. The source is laying all these cards on the table to make its point.
Let's zoom in on that first example for a second, the Scindia family. The source brings up a really interesting point here. For years, when Jyotiraditya Scindia was with the Congress party, his family's role in the state's cricket association was often called out as, dynastic politics. But here's the twist the source highlights. Ever since he joined the BJP, that line of criticism from inside the party has pretty much gone silent, even with his son now in a similar position. It's a fascinating example of how changing your political team can change the conversation. Now, it's important to say, this isn't just about pointing fingers. The source material is actually a lot more nuanced than that. It recognizes that, yeah, this whole thing is pretty complicated.
So it's kind of like looking at two sides of the same coin. On one side, the source completely agrees with the problems of nepotism. Of course, it's not fair. It shuts the door on people who don't have the right connections and puts a family name above actual ability. But on the other side, it also acknowledges that, hey, this happens in a lot of jobs, right? And if you grow up in a political family, you're just naturally going to be around it more and probably get more chances. So let's be absolutely clear on this. The source is not making an excuse for nepotism. Not at all. It totally agrees that it denies equal opportunity, that it puts surnames over merit, and that it can turn political parties into family businesses. All of that is considered a given. That's the common ground. The real point the source is digging into is something different.
And that right there, that's the absolute core of the argument being made here. The big question isn't, does nepotism exist? We know it does. The real question is, how do we talk about it? How is the criticism applied? Who gets a pass and who gets put under the microscope?
Which brings us to the final, really sharp question that the source leaves us with. If we all agree nepotism is a problem, then why does the public outcry seem so selective? Is the stand against dynasties a genuine, consistent principle? Or, as the source suggests we should ask, is it sometimes just a convenient weapon to use against your opponents? That's definitely something to chew on.